But we begin tonight's show in Minnesota as the Minnesota Vikings beat the San Francisco 49ers 22-17. For the 49ers, Brock Purdy, he went 21 of 30. He threw for 272 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. For the Vikings, Kirk Cousins, he went 35 of 45, 378 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Rookie wide receiver Jordan Addison had 7 receptions, 123 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns for the Vikings. Here's 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan after the game.
What's going to stick with you about this game?
The loss, losing. I mean,
Are there specific areas that you were just really concerned with?
I was real disappointed that we couldn't get them off the field. I mean, they had 1 punt today. We had 1 punt. They had 1 turnover. We had 3 turnovers. So I think when both teams only punt once, it looks like it's going to be a shootout. But, we ended up turning over 2 more times than them, and it was a 5-point game. So almost as simple as that.
That was 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan after the 49ers' second consecutive loss. So my biggest takeaway from this game, after watching this game start to finish, my biggest takeaway is Brock Purdy is not this elite quarterback that people were talking about he was through the first 5 weeks of the season. I know Brock Purdy started off his career as a starting quarterback with a 10-0 record in the regular season. I know Brock Purdy overall record, even with these 2 consecutive losses, is 10-2, and so far for his career, he has 24 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions, and he's already won 2 playoff games. All those things are great, but Brock Purdy has not shown an ability to where he can make plays when the 49ers trail in football games. Let's look at Brock Purdy so far this season when the 49ers are tied or when they're leading games compared to when they're trailing. Brock Purdy, when the 49ers are leading or tied in games, his completion percentage is 70%. When they are trailing, it's 59%. When the 49ers are leading football games or tied, he has 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. When they're trailing, he has 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. When the 49ers are leading or a game is tied, Brock Purdy's passer rating is 116.4. When they are trailing, it's 72.8. And so when you look at Brock Purdy, when he doesn't have his full arsenal of weapons to distribute the football to, he struggles. Because when you look at his numbers with Deebo Samuel compared to when he doesn't have Deebo Samuel, it's not very good. With Deebo Samuel on the field, Brock Purdy completes 71% of his passes. Without Deebo Samuel, he only completes 61% of his passes. With Deebo Samuel on the field, he has 8 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. With Deebo Samuel off the field, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. His off-target percentage is 12% when Deebo Samuel is on the field. When Deebo Samuel is off the field, it's 21%. So all of these 49er fans and NFL analysts who were crowning Brock Purdy as this elite quarterback in the first 10 games of his career in the regular season because he had a 10-0 record and because he had those 2 playoff wins, they were completely wrong. Because Brock Purdy is an average quarterback. He's average. Brock Purdy is not a good quarterback. He's not bad. He's not as bad as a Daniel Jones or a Matt Jones or a Zach Wilson, but he's not on the level of a Kirk Cousins or a Jared Goff when he's at his best. Even in this matchup last night, Kirk Cousins outplayed Brock Purdy. And I feel like if Kyle Shanahan, if he's honest with himself, he would be honest enough to acknowledge deep down inside that he wishes Kirk Cousins was his quarterback instead of Brock Purdy. Because if Kirk Cousins were the 49ers quarterback, I believe the San Francisco 49ers could win the NFC. Now, coming into the season, I picked the Philadelphia Eagles. And I feel like the Eagles and the 49ers, top to bottom, are equivalent. They're equivalent. But what separates the Eagles from the 49ers is quarterback play. And Jalen Hurts is significantly better than Brock Purdy, and that's the reason why I have the Eagles representing the NFC in the Super Bowl, not the 49ers. Before the season, I was going back and forth on who I thought was going to make the Super Bowl from the NFC because I know how great the San Francisco 49ers are. They got weapons all across the field. You got Christian McCaffrey in the backfield. You got a great 1-2 punch at receiver with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. You got a top 3 tight end in the NFL in George Kittle. Defensively, they got one of the best defenses in the NFL. And you got Kyle Shanahan, who's one of the best coaches in the NFL. The 49ers have zero weaknesses as a football team. Their biggest weakness is their quarterback. He's their biggest weakness by far. He's the weakest link on their football team. And I'm not saying the man is a bad quarterback. He's average. And he's a system quarterback. We have to stop trying to pretend like these system quarterbacks are as good as the elite quarterbacks are, who can play in any system, anywhere, and be elite. There's a difference. We have to stop basing a quarterback on how good he is on wins and losses. We have to stop doing that. We have to. Justin Herbert right now is losing in LA with the Chargers. The Chargers are 2-4 on the season. You are a fool if you believe that Brock Purdy is better or on the same level as a Justin Herbert. I had this argument last night with my cousin, and I was explaining to my cousin that football is the ultimate team sport. It's the ultimate team sport. Justin Herbert is dealing with the mess with the Chargers. He's dealing with the mess each and every week. Bad coaching from Brandon Staley. I don't even understand how the hell Brandon Staley still has a job. I don't understand how he still has a job. Not only that, defensively, that Chargers defense is pathetic. Brock Purdy has had the luxury of not only playing for a team that has the NFL's best defense, but also a team that has Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle offensively. They are loaded. So we have to stop with this notion that quarterback wins and losses are how we determine how we rank quarterbacks. We have to stop it. Do you get credit? Do I feel like Brock Purdy deserves credit for that 10-0 record to start his career in the regular season? Absolutely. But to pretend like Brock Purdy is this good quarterback because they start the season off 10-0, or they're 10-0 in his first 10 starts, it's nonsense. It's nonsense. So I feel like this was an opportunity for Brock Purdy to prove that with all the odds stacked against you, can you deliver when your team needs you the most? That's how we determine whether or not you can be a good or elite quarterback. When the odds are stacked against you, when you don't have your left tackle in Trent Williams, when you don't have your number one receiver in Deebo Samuel, when your defense has given up over 400 yards on a Monday night primetime game, can you deliver when the moment presents itself? And Brock Purdy failed at being able to deliver when the moment presented itself, and he's an average quarterback. And if the 49ers don't reach the Super Bowl, it's not going to be because of Kyle Shanahan. It's not going to be because of that defense. And it's damn sure not going to be because of their weapons not delivering when they're called upon. It's going to be because of Brock Purdy. Now, when I look at the Minnesota Vikings, Minnesota, they improved their record to 3-4. Kirk Cousins was sensational last night. Besides that one interception that he had, he was great last night. You look at Kirk Cousins so far this year, 16 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 2,057 passing yards. He's completing 69% of his passes. And last night, this Vikings offense had 452 total yards of offense, even without Justin Jefferson. Shout out to this kid, Jordan Addison, this rookie from USC. He had 100 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. He's the third player in Monday Night Football history to have that type of performance. In 1998, Randy Moss for the Vikings had 100 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. In 2018, Traquan Smith for the Saints had 100 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. Jordan Addison has been balling. We got to give this young kid credit. He was balling last night. And look at Jordan Addison so far this season. In the first 5 games, he had only 3 receiving touchdowns. The last 2 games, he has 3 receiving touchdowns. His receiving yards per game in the first 5 weeks was 50 yards receiving per game. In the last 2 games, it's 76 yards per game. So Jordan Addison has been balling. And when the Vikings get back Justin Jefferson, this offense could be very, very good. They have to also get better at running the football. They still don't run the football well. Last night, they only had 74 rushing yards. But even though the Vikings won last night, and I do believe once they get back Justin Jefferson, they could be dangerous. And also, you look at the Vikings schedule over the next few weeks. Week 8, they are in Green Bay against Jordan Love. That's a winnable game. Week 9, they are in Atlanta against Desmond Ridder. Winnable game. Week 10, they are home against the Saints. That's a winnable game. Week 11, they are in Denver against the Broncos. That's a winnable game. Week 12, they are home against the Bears. That's a winnable game. And they have their bye in week 13. So I know Viking fans are thinking, wow, over the next 5 weeks, we can maybe go 3-2, maybe even 4-1, and be in the wild card conversation in the NFC. And if the Lions slip up, we could possibly win the NFC North. Listen, it's going to be the same results, different year for the Vikings. Even if the Vikings sneak into the playoffs, the Vikings are not better than the 49ers. The Vikings are not better than the Philadelphia Eagles. The Vikings are not better than even the Detroit Lions or the Seattle Seahawks, for that matter. So I feel like the Vikings need to trade. Yes, trade Kirk Cousins right now. His value will never be higher than it currently is. You have to get rid of Kirk Cousins. He's not going to be your quarterback of the future, and you can get something significant and draft capital for Kirk Cousins. So could the Vikings possibly sneak their way into the playoffs? Yes, but there'll be a first-round playoff exit with this current roster that they have. They're not good enough. They're not good enough. And I'm not even certain that they're going to beat the Packers next week in Green Bay. I know the Packers are struggling, but I'm not so sure the Vikings are going to beat the Packers next week. Seriously. So we'll see what happens, but great win for the Vikings. I still don't believe that they're one of those teams that could represent the NFC in the Super Bowl or even get to an NFC championship game. But they can definitely win some games with Kirk Cousins, for sure.